On this episode, Andy and Luke discuss the chiropractic pro wrestling adventure movie, The Naked Man. Welcome to the road home on film.
All right, welcome back to the road home on film. My name's Andy. I'm coming to you live to tape, and today is an interesting day. It's a special day. I don't know if it's a good day or not. We're going to find out. But the good thing is that we are joined by a guest from all the way on the other side of the world. It is Luke, a.k.a. LSJ, a.k.a. Grumpy 2 Electric Boogaloo. Welcome to the road home on film. How you doing, Luke?
I'm doing pretty good. It's the future here, and we're flying cars and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, it's actually the next day. I'm sitting here on Thursday, and it's Friday where you are, and that's what you mean. You're in the fucking future. How's that feel?
It feels good. It doesn't work with the lottery numbers or anything, but it feels pretty good.
Okay. Now, what should I call you, Luke? Should I call you LSJ? Should I call you Grumpy 2 Electric Boogaloo? I mean, you have so many names. Which one do you prefer?
There we go. I'm umming. Oh shit, you gotta edit that. I don't care.
Okay.
People usually call me Luke or Sims or Dim Sims or Hey Idiot or Grumpy. It's all good.
Okay. Well, let's go with LSJ, because that sounds fucking cool, don't you think?
Yeah, I totally stole that from Zack Sabre Jr.
Of course, yeah. Well, okay, so tell us a little bit about you. How the hell do I know you? And tell me a little bit about these movie reviews you've been doing.
All right, so I think we've been aware of each other for maybe about 5 years or so, give or take. Like, I think we were aware of each other with emailing another podcast. Am I allowed to name drop them?
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, so we kind of met through the Smart Wrestling Fan podcast. I think you'd email all the time, and then so would I. And we eventually became Facebook friends and just talking movies and wrestling and all that kind of shit. And the reviews were, I get a bit ranty sometimes or bored, and I need things to do. So reviewing movies seemed like a bit of fun. Really, it's not always fun. I can handle bad movies and I can handle fantastic movies, but a lot of my reviews so far have been a lot of 5s, and it's the in the middle ones that are always the hardest to do.
Yeah, it's kind of like wrestling. You know, the worst thing is for a wrestler to come out and have no reaction, and that's kind of these middle of the road movies. But you also kind of started your YouTube channel at a time of the year when movies fucking suck. So maybe that's on you.
Yeah, that's totally my fault. I thought, Star Wars Episode 9, that'll be a great start. That'll get me lots of click. And yeah, so I think that was a good place to start, but in terms of what I've been watching since, yeah, maybe I should have waited until June or July or something.
Well, if folks want to, and I highly encourage you to do this, LSJ's reviews are much shorter than this review we're going to do today. You can watch them all in a couple hours, maybe even. And here's the thing: is that the link to his show will be down in the show notes for this episode. So check that out. Go subscribe to him and get the joy of watching his reactions to shitty movies like Doolittle. So now today...
That's your fault that I watched that, by the way.
That movie fucking sucks, but we're not here to talk about that. Today we're here to talk about a movie that I thought only I knew about, and I'm pretty sure that I am the only one that knew about this until I told you about it. It's a movie from 1998 called The Naked Man that's written by Ethan Cohen and J. Todd Anderson, directed by J. Todd Anderson. So normally the road home from wrestling, we go to a movie, and then, or we go to a wrestling show and then we review it. In this case, that was going to be very difficult and very expensive. And plus, this movie was hard to find. Tell me, LSJ, you found it. How did you find it? And, tell me a little bit about this movie, just your opening thoughts about it.
All right. So finding this movie, so you and I were talking about what to watch, and you mentioned The Naked Man. I have vague recollections of it. I might have seen the video cover. I might have seen the film before. I don't know. But it took me a lot longer than I thought it would to find it. It's not really on anything streamable, and it's not on anything piratable either. So I did look at the legit ways of finding this film, but I actually did find a legit way. There's some website that just has rare movies on it, and it worked. So no paywall, no nothing. Just get on the site, click on it. Sorry, go on.
It's called like raremovies.com or something, and I actually put the link right next to your YouTube channel in the show notes for this episode as well, so folks can go watch this if they choose to do so, because I have mixed feelings on this movie, as I'm sure you do. It's good and bad all at the same time, and we're going to get through all that. But I don't know. What are your kind of opening thoughts about it? And did you find it to be good or bad in any way, shape, or form?
There's some laughs here. There's definitely a lot of what the fuck in this movie. I think I said to you on a message that I wondered if Ethan Coen had written this movie, and had a conversation with Joel, and Joel was like, "I'm not making this." So he went to his. So Ethan goes to his storyboard artist and is like, "Hey, you've wanted to direct a movie, haven't you? Here, right there. Make this movie." Because the director of this film has storyboarded several Coen Brothers films before this and after this movie as well.
Yeah, it's almost as if it's either that's what happened or Ethan Coen just said, "Sure, you can put my name on the deal," just to kind of give you a little bit of give them the rub, as they would say in wrestling. Now, let's I'm going to give you a brief synopsis, and this is the synopsis from IMDb. Okay, so these often are very inaccurate, and you tell me, is this what happens in this movie? So from IMDb, it says a man takes matters into his own hands when a pharmaceutical kingpin moves into his town to cause some real trouble.
I guess. Like, that's kind of what happens in the movie. It doesn't explain. It does not explain much. You read that synopsis and you think, "Oh, that sounds perfectly fine movie." And after about 5 minutes, you're just like, "Oh, okay." It's like one of those really weird, very 90s movies.
It is, and it's weird because Fargo came out 2 years before this. The Big Lebowski came out the same year, and those movies look amazing. I mean, they just look incredible. And this movie, whether it's good or bad, it looks like shit. And that's really the biggest problem with the movie, is that it just looks awful. It's lit poorly. If it looks like that they're filming it on fucking video instead of film. It's very, very bad looking. But that doesn't mean it is bad. What we ought to do now is go through some of these actors and see how you thought they did. Obviously, this is starring Michael Rappaport as Eddie Bliss. Are you familiar with Michael Rappaport, and what do you know him from, and what do you think of him?
My mind immediately goes to True Romance. I'm not quite sure what character he played in that. I'm not sure if he was like one of Christian Slater's best mates or if he was getting stoned with Brad Pitt later on in the movie, but I remember him from that.
That's a tremendous movie, by the way. And that's a really good way to describe Michael Rappaport's career. He's played bit roles. He's kind of a character actor, just like everyone in this movie for the most part. Almost everyone in this movie is a character actor. There's no real stars. And so that also kind of makes the movie feel weird. But he is in so many great movies, but he's always like the main character's best friend or some kind of, minor role in a movie. I know him best from a terrible / awesome movie called Bamboozled, which, good Lord, that is Spike Lee's truly his most offensive movie. I don't know if anybody could watch it nowadays and not turn it off 20 minutes in. But when I was younger, I thought it was awesome. Now I don't think so much. But have you ever seen that movie?
No, but it's going on the list.
Oh boy, it is crazy. I didn't recommend that, just so you know. So Michael Rappaport, I think he's a pretty good actor. I also associate him with kind of like poetic justice and those type of like kind of black culture moving into, white culture kind of clashing. He's in a movie called Zebrahead where that happens. That's like his first movie. But I think that's the only movie that he stars in besides this. Like everything else, he's kind of a minor character or a bit part. We also have kind of a love interest for him, sort of. I'm not really sure. We'll find out when we talk about it. But Rachel Leigh Cook is Dolores, and she is best known from the movie She's All That. Yeah, right. Now, are you familiar with her?
I'm familiar with She's All That. I remember late 90s, early noughties. She was a bit of a name, and then she just kind of faded off.
Yeah, I don't know. She's been in a couple other things, but really after that, I don't really remember anything. Although you never know, she's probably been on one of these awesome HBO series, and I just don't even realize it's her or something like that. I think she's pretty good in this movie. She plays a very strange role, and it's a tough one, honestly, because she only exists to do one thing, and that's it. It's like later on in the movie, she has kind of a plot function, and that's the only reason she's in the fucking movie. But
wait a minute.
What's that?
You just said like you might not recognize her for something else that she's done because they might have changed her look or something like that.
Yeah.
That's the plot of She's All That right there.
Fair enough.
You're Freddie Prinze Jr., my man.
Well, if they would have put some glasses on her, then I would have been like, oh, yeah, it's her. Okay. That's tremendous. Well, and then we also have another guy here who is a fucking amazing actor who's been in all kinds of stuff. And if when I say his name's Michael Jeter. He plays a character named Styx. And most people know him from The Green Mile. He's the French guy from The Green Mile that has the little mouse or whatever. What do you know him from? Is that what you know him from?
Well, you just reminded me about Michael Jeter. I knew I'd seen him in something before, but in this movie, he is amazing.
Yes, right. He's kind of he's the comic.
I don't mean amazing. Sorry.
Go ahead. You're good.
I don't mean amazing as in like he's necessarily giving a perfect performance, but he's just so weird and creepy and strange and just fun.
I can't wait to describe some of these characters. So let's get through this last guy I want to talk about real quick. His name's John Carroll Lynch, and he plays the driver, but he's also Elvis. I don't know. He's just, like, for some reason, he's a character that dresses up like Elvis. So we'll talk about that here in a minute. But that dude has been in all kinds of stuff. He's the bad guy in Zodiac. He was Norm Gunderson in Fargo. He's been in a bunch of stuff. And he's one of these guys that can play completely wholesome, normal dude and can play a complete psycho as well. Have you seen him in anything? Are you familiar with this guy?
I am. I saw him recently, maybe a year or so ago, when my wife and I watched The Founder. He's in that, and I did not recognize him at all in this movie. You said, "Oh, he's a great character actor" or something in a message you sent to me. So I Googled him, and as soon as I saw his face, I was like, "I've seen him everywhere." He's one of those guys you don't know his name, like Margot Martinson in BoJack. No one ever knows who she is, but because she's a character actor or something. But yeah, I'd seen him in so many things.
His IMDb's like 300 movies or something crazy like that. I mean, he's been around. So check that guy out. He's in all kinds of great stuff. So, all right, well, let's get into this movie. And, we open up, all right, on a very strange scene where basically I had to turn the television down because I didn't want my neighbors thinking I was watching porn real loud. Because we get this kind of sexual chiropractic adjustment. Luke, can you describe this to me and tell me what happens here?
Yeah, this woman, she lays down on this kind of massage chiropractic table, and as Michael Rappaport is doing chiropractic moves on her, for lack of a better term. Chiropractic moves, yeah. There's a lot of orgasmic moaning and the sounds of kind of bones creaking at the same time.
It becomes clear in this opening scene that he's very good at his job and that his customers very much appreciate him, maybe a little too much, And we're introduced right away to Michael Rappaport, who plays Dr. Edward Bliss. He's a chiropractor with super strength. That's kind of one of his defining features is he seems to have this kind of super strength that allows him to, be a tremendous chiropractor to the point where women are having orgasms and stuff when he's touching them. So we find out that he's moving to a new office, and we see him pass this information on to his customers, who seem to not even give a shit. They're like, hour away, 10 hours away, we don't care. But his boss does care, right? Tell me about this little interaction he has with his boss.
His boss is, all right, for starters, I know he's a bad boss in this movie, but you don't really, Michael Rappaport is totally undercutting, or Eddie Bliss is totally undercutting his boss's business by stealing all his clients. He deserves it because he's a bit of a jerk, but his boss is just like using him, not paying him a wage worth a damn. And, he's just screaming at him, you'll be back. And as Eddie Bliss walks away, there's just this nurse in a short nurse's outfit. And, yeah, he cuts away, but, yeah, he's as creepy as you can imagine.
Yeah, he kind of just sexually harasses a nurse real quick, and then we cut away as he's kind of, literally like grabbing her with his claws. And there's a lot of stuff like that in this movie where it's like, okay, we get it, he's a bad guy, but let's throw another little layer of shittiness on top of this person, just to be, just to really, really hammer it home. And it becomes cartoonish in a lot of ways. Ironically, this is very ironic, I found, is that this is Eddie Bliss going into business for himself, which you're not supposed to do in wrestling, and you're not supposed to do in chiropractic either, I guess. I don't know. So it's pretty funny. So then we get our first wrestling match, all right? And tell me, what is the Naked Man?
He's got like this full body leotard, and it's got the musculature of the human body, complete with like a heart on his chest, and just the kind of rib cage and the guts, and then a mask over his face, which is the kind of musculature of a face without the skin on it.
It's really weird, but it's actually something I've never seen in pro wrestling. And years ago, I found this movie by just searching pro wrestling in Netflix. I swear to God, I wasn't searching Naked Man in Netflix, but maybe I was. Who knows?
Right, if you was.
But, it's true. But anyway, so I found this movie, and I saw the opening and all this, and I'm like, man, that's a pretty cool gimmick. We have this guy over here. Now, you have to be pretty old to know who this is, but there's this guy named Slim Goodbody, who, when I was a kid, we would see these videos at school, and Slim Goodbody would wear that same leotard, but without the mask, and then, like, do exercises and tell us how to, like, be fit and stuff like that. Are you familiar with Slim Goodbody?
No, not at all.
You're not missing a goddamn thing. Okay, so we get the Naked Man versus a Samoan, and that's how he's listed in the credits, a Samoan. So we get a low blow from the Naked Man, and the crowd goes wild. Back elbow.
DQ, by the way.
What was that?
There was no DQ.
Yeah, the rules of wrestling seem to be as fluid as the rules of screenwriting in this movie, They don't really quite understand. And something I found interesting, too, one of my favorite Coen Brothers movies is a movie called Barton Fink, and it stars John Turturro, and he is a writer who is hired by a Hollywood studio to write a wrestling picture. And so, he watches wrestling movies the whole time, and a lot of this kind of camera work was very similar to the old school wrestling stuff that you might see, like the old wrestling movies, that star like El Santo and guys that aren't even really wrestlers. What did you think of all this wrestling action here?
I thought it was amazing. I liked it when A Samoan is thrown into the ropes, and there's a fan that's like right too close. He's like almost touching the ring barrier, and as A Samoan bounces off the ropes, the popcorn goes flying. So everyone's up close and personal. There's no security at all. There's very little rules. I don't know what the ref's there for, but it's all over the place. I think because I've watched so much wrestling, to watch a movie that has wrestling as part of its story and to see them just play roughshod all over the rules, it fucking drove me insane.
That's awesome. Yeah, it didn't really bother me because I knew it was kind of a cartoon, and but the Naked Man, he uses a shitty pin, the kind of Chris Jericho come on baby pin, and he gets the win. And it turns out it's his birthday because his opponent, a Samoan, looks right up at him and says, "Happy birthday, Eddie." And there's a lot of, I would say that 99% of the lines in this movie are ADR, because there's a lot of people talking without their mouth moving. Did you notice that as well?
Yeah, it's almost like The Room, where he's leaving the flower shop and the voiceover says, "You're my favorite customer."
It is like in all of the wrestling matches. That's basically it. It's pretty funny. So, and then we meet the sleazy promoter. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I was going to say, do you think all the wrestlers in this movie look like really crappy Vince McMahon creations from the 90s? Like you've got a burglar, you've got a guy dressed up as an Indian, you've got the Naked Man. They all seem to be so gimmicked up that you expect to see fucking Isaac Yankem coming out, or the Bushwhackers or something.
They're trying to make this as cartoonish as possible. The reason why they have a Viking and a robber and all this stuff is the same reason that they had the boss sexually harass the nurse. It's this, it's just to make it outrageous. That's what this is all about, to make it ridiculous so that you're in this bizarre world where crazy shit can happen and there doesn't need to be any real explanation for it. What did you think of the sleazy promoter? I love this guy. I thought he was fucking awesome.
I think he has a really hands-off approach to booking. There's certain times where things are going on in the ring and he's like, "I never thought of that." I'm like, you're the booker, dude. You should be coming up with all these ideas or working with the talent. Instead, he feels like a spectator most of the time.
He's super goofy too. He says a lot of funny shit. Like everything he says is just like a cartoon character of a promoter. He's smoking a gigantic cigar. When he told, because Eddie is retiring from wrestling, and when he yells at Eddie, you'll be back," just like his chiropractic boss does. Did you expect him to turn around and cop a feel of one of the wrestlers or something after that? I did not.
Oh, that's just me then.
They should have, though. Yeah, there was a weird scene right before this where he's arguing with two of the wrestlers talking about what they do outside of the ring. And I think that there was something going on there that was supposed to be some kind of a non-PC type of situation where he was telling them not to be gay or something like that. So
that was weird.
It was weird.
That was thinly veiled gay joke, and it's 1998. Gay jokes are they're never good. But they were common in kind of like late 90s media. You'd have kind of gay jokes all the time. It was probably lessening, but you had gay jokes all the time in that era, but they kind of held back on it this time.
Yeah, I think they cut it out. I think that it was there, but they cut it out. So the sleazy promoter, he talks to Eddie, and Eddie's best girl. That's what he calls his wife. It's his fucking wife, and he says, "It's my best girl." He's such a cheesy white bread motherfucker. And we see that she wears the pants of the family, and that she's preggers. She's got a bun in the oven. And so he lets her know, she lets the promoter know that Eddie's just had his last match. And Eddie says, "Yeah, I'm quitting the canvas," he says. And there's like a couple more alliterations for quitting wrestling that are just hilarious. It's like, where did you guys come up with this shit? I love
it. I like how Eddie and his wife give the promoter plenty of time before they quit. No, it's just the day of, finish the match. I'm out of here, because if he was leaving the company, he wouldn't have got to win on his birthday. They would have jobbed him out really fast. So I think they did the right thing. They went out on top.
Yeah, that is shitty, because like you said, he should have gone out staring at the lights. Which you go in on your back, you go out on your back. But Eddie doesn't give a fuck. He's going into business for himself in the chiropractic business, and he's also going to go into business for himself on a whole nother level in pro wrestling here in a few. So now we get this cool flashback. I don't know if it's cool or not. This flashback to Eddie being bullied as a kid. And then we realize that, this is where he starts to train to get tough. We start to see him winning amateur wrestling matches, and this is happening almost as quick as I'm saying it. It happens very quickly.
I have a serious question about that little montage, though.
Yes, sir.
Right. The first kid, there's like two kids that play young Eddie. The first one looks like Haley Joel Osment, the little guy from what's the Dead I See Dead People movie, Sixth Sense, right? He looks like him. So I looked him up on IMDb, but the only credit he has, the credit for this character of young Eddie is Trump Card, and you click on Trump Card, and that's his only appearance in something. So maybe Haley didn't want his name on it. I don't even know if it's him. It looked like him so bad.
He may be in there uncredited. Who knows? This movie could have been made under certain, guidelines, kind of below the under the table type of thing, where they didn't want to pay this kid, so they just didn't put his name in there. Who knows? I don't know.
Do you reckon the kid was smart enough to ask for his name to be taken off the movie, because if his friends saw it and saw that his only scene was him getting his ass kicked, he might get his ass kicked himself when he goes to school?
You could be right. He gets a fucking atomic wedgie, man. They whoop his ass, and there's a little girl that's goes and gets this hilarious coach character that we only see a couple times in the movie. He's like the gym teacher in the silk jacket blowing the whistle and the shitty shorts and everything with the socks pulled up to his knees, and he breaks up the fight or whatever. And Eddie learns how to wrestle, amateur wrestler, and he's breaking kids' arms and shit. Did this make you laugh? Was this pretty funny here?
Yeah, I thought it was hilarious. Now he's got the skills to show those bullies a lesson, but he doesn't show them a lesson as if to say, "Hey, don't fuck with me anymore." He goes for it. He goes into business for himself and just breaks their arms.
Yeah, it's weird. This movie is supposed to be kind of a this guy who's always getting pushed around, who always kind of, is a yes man, is he's standing up for himself. That's kind of the idea, but it takes a bizarre turn here in a few minutes that is just like, what? And this is when the naked man takes his clothes off, so to speak. So we get Eddie becomes a wrestler, and he wants to be a wrestler. He gets in trouble for breaking these kids' arms, and his dad's like, "You will be a pharmacist," because his dad's a pharmacist. And he says, "No, I want to be a wrestler." And they have this argument, right, where they just yell the words at each other, which is fun. And then let's see here. And then we have just more training. Eddie gets a free ride to college because of his amateur wrestling, but he doesn't want to go for pharmaceuticals. He wants to go to be a chiropractor. Can you tell me a little bit about Eddie's belief system and what he believes in?
I can, but I can also tell you that he must have broken those kids' arms, heard the sound of bones crunching, and thought, "Fuck yeah, that's for me."
Now, if I
as for Eddie's,
just figure out how to make money doing this, right?
can I hurt people and make money? So his belief system is very kind of ancient Greek, kind of look after your body and your mind, keep good posture, don't take any drugs, that kind of stuff. I think he takes that wrestling very, very seriously, which is, I guess, weird that he'd make the transition to pro. He seemed too much of a purist when it comes to what he thinks of amateur wrestling and things like that.
Yeah, he says many times that he treats the whole body. He's like literally a holistic medicine kind of guy, and he hates drugs and he hates piercing the skin. And I always remembered that from that movie. I don't know why that line about how he's complaining about how people want to pierce your skin, meaning injections and stuff, and how terrible that is. And that's just stuck in my mind because I've never heard that before. I've never heard someone say, oh, you should never pierce your skin. Have you ever heard that before?
Just in terms of maybe religion, I know Muslims don't really believe in getting tattoos and things like that. But as far as medical stuff, no, this guy's a quack.
He is, right? He's a complete quack. But it works. I mean, that's the funny thing is in this cartoon world, the spine is what, is the magic that kind of makes a person be who they are. Which is, we're going to get into that, heavy here in a minute. So he's a believer in these holistic treatments. And then we get more flashbacks, and the flashbacks are bumpered by these scenes of just Eddie naked, like floating in the abyss. What'd you think of these kind of like weird scene changes?
I saw more of Michael Rappaport than I ever wanted to see. I know I should have expected something like this because the fucking movie's called The Naked Man. But I could have done without seeing, look, if anyone listening wants to see Michael Rappaport's butt, you're in for a treat. Unfortunately, like the only version of this we found is, and this probably is another reason why it looked so shitty, is because no one's cleaned this movie up in like 22 years, and it looks, even for late 90s, really bad, like really bad VHS kind of look to it. And wow, I lost my train of thought like I was stoned or something.
That's okay. I mean, that's what I was saying. It looks like it's filmed on video, which it might have been. I mean, that they did that sometimes just to be cheap. And, this might have been, like I said, just a kind of passion project, like you said before, for the storyboarder and, the people that put the money up were just like, hey, have fun. Who knows? I mean, but yeah, so we get these weird flashback bumper scenes of him like floating around naked in the abyss. There's even one where the coach is just running in the abyss, just whistling. And by the abyss, I just mean black. It's just nothingness, Yep. And so he starts working at the chiropractor's office, and he finishes a bunch of work in just like a little bit of time. And the fucking chiropractor starts dancing, and like he's like, I like you. That was awesome. And then we see him start to do pro wrestling and the birth of the Naked Man gimmick. We get to see this as well. And we get to see his relationship with his best girl, Kim. What'd you think of the scene where they're just making out on the couch and it just keeps going further and further, and then you're like, okay, we've seen enough. What do you think of this?
By the way, I think that's Juice Bigelow's woman.
Oh,
wife.
Shit. That's awesome.
I'm not sure if saying it was Juice Bigelow's woman is a nice thing to say, but, that they're in a relationship, I think, in that movie. I can't remember Juice Bigelow very well, but I remember her from that, which is weird to admit because now I've seen Juice Bigelow. That movie sucks.
We've all seen it.
Yeah, we all have. But I just want to go back to the wife before this really awkward makeout session. She's really down on his wrestling career. Like, he's 30. You should be growing out of this by now. And then, here's us. I'm not too sure how old you are, but I'm 37. I watch more wrestling now than I did when I was a teenager.
Anyone that knows me knows that it's gotten completely out of control. So, I've lost my mind. And, and me and you, I mean, it's no big deal for you because it's like the middle of the fucking day. But many times me and you have been watching the same show, as far as like New Japan Pro Wrestling. And it's like 3 a.m. here, and it's like 2 p.m. or like 6 p.m. for you. But I mean, yeah, I've done extreme things to go see pro wrestling. I mean, last week we went to 2 shows on one day. So, I mean, I've lost my mind. We both lost our mind. But, man, it's so fun to be crazy. I love it.
So I don't get her. Like, what you married. You married this guy who's all about wrestling. Everything about him is wrestling. Oh, and chiropractic stuff as well. But he's more. He thinks of himself more as a wrestler. I think that's more what his love and passion is. I think the chiropractic stuff is just a career. So she was really down on him. I didn't like her in that scene, but every other scene of her in the movie, she's kind of she's a nice person. She's a good wife. But there's that one scene at the start where she's saying, "No, he's quitting wrestling." I was just like, "What the fuck? Why wouldn't you support him?" But yeah. I think just me getting away from seeing Michael Rappaport's butt and seeing him awkwardly make out with his woman, with his lady woman. I think he even says that.
His best girl. That's what he calls her.
His best girl. That's it.
Yeah. He's like I say, he's this white bread, cornbread American motherfucker. So.
Is that why he was in Spike Lee movies all the time? Because,
yes,
I was thinking, who's the whitest motherfucker we've ever seen that probably won't cost us a lot of money?
Michael
Rappaport? Yeah.
I mean, if he says "Golly gee, my best girl," I mean, I'm buying it every time. You know what I mean? So, all right. So we get all these flashbacks of stuff that we talked about, and now we're back to the present, and we meet some new characters. Eddie and his wife are traveling. They're in the car, and we meet some new characters who are Styx, who is I'm going to let you describe these two guys. So we got Styx and then we got Elvis, basically. Tell me about these two characters and kind of what is their motivation?
The motivation's really weird. So they're in this RV kind of car driving along. Now you see that Styx is a smaller guy and he's got crutches. He's got some kind of spinal problem or something like that. So instantly I'm thinking, there's got to be a scene in this movie. I thought this instantly. Like, there's got to be a scene where the naked man gets him in a hold, lets him go, and he's dancing around going, "Holy shit, I'm really good." Like, he wouldn't have, because the character of Styx looks like he's, fucking 55 or something like that. You mean in dealing with that pain for so long, you never thought to visit a chiropractor? Not once, but that's neither here nor there. The other guy, I'm going to call him Puffy because all their chemists that they own are called Puffy's Chemists, and they have a face of Elvis on it. And this guy is like a really chubby Elvis dude, totally full of don't fuck with me attitude and obsessed with peanut butter and bacon sandwiches. And so Puffy and Styx, I think they own a lot of chemists and stuff, and they pass by Eddie's dad's pharmacy. And do they have pharmacies like this in America? Like, I know they might have in the 50s or something like that. Do they still have these pharmacies where you can go in, get your pills, and then while you're waiting for him to mix them all together, go and get yourself a freaking banana split?
In the town I grew up in, there is one, and it's intentionally supposed to be like the 50s or whatever. So, but I mean, your average pharmacy nowadays, or chemist as you call it, is it's going to be in like a grocery store chain typically, or it's in a like there's one called Walgreens around here, and Walgreens is just basically like a little convenience store that also has that's mostly what they do is pharmaceuticals. pills, right? So it's not quite the same as it used to be, but they're trying to, the Coen brothers are always kind of obsessed with the past as far as that goes, and these kind of, snapshots of America, and that's kind of what this is. It represents the innocence of America. It represents the innocence of the characters as well. Eddie's father and mother and the girl. And when these guys walk into this pharmacy, they are spoiling the innocence. That's what's going on here, which is pretty cool. We're not there yet, though. So Eddie returns home to the father's pharmacy, and they make up, and it's pretty funny because he basically just spills the pills all over the floor, and then he's going to get mad at him and then hugs him or whatever.
So many scenes in this movie feel like dream sequences as well, even though they're not dream sequences. Like, they'll repeat phrases like bye, Dad, goodbye, Dad, which is coming up in a tick, and just dropping the pills and things like that. Like, just all this kind of dream imagery, even though no one's asleep. No one's sleeping or dreaming. And it's really weird.
He says, goodbye, Dad, and then he walks down the street and looks through the window. Hey, goodbye, Dad. It's really funny. That shit was hilarious. And we find out that Eddie's new office is going to be across the street. That's the place that he was telling the characters about at the beginning, his patients. Yep. And then Eddie leaves to go see a man about some, like, pharmaceutical stuff. I don't know. Or some chiropractic, like, stuff. So he leaves.
No. What happens is he gets to his office and he might be after supplies or something, but the place is locked. And then his car... He left his keys in the car, and no one can open that either.
Yeah, we're not there yet, but, the idea is that he is... Well, it's confusing because his new office is supposed to be across the street. So it seems to me that he left in their Trans Am, by the way, that has, all their shit in a little... capsule they're pulling down the road. And, it seems to me that he was going to get something. He said something about a chiropractic machine or something. So he's going to this place, right? So he leaves, and he leaves the father, mother, and his wife, his pregnant wife, alone. And here comes Styx and Elvis. They arrive at the pharmacy, and they bump into Eddie, actually, on their way out, and he gives them their card, which is hilarious because then later on they're like, how can I find this guy? And they got his fucking card earlier in the movie, so they didn't remember that part. But they go in and act super weird. And like I said, the mood immediately changes, and the mother, the father, and the wife, they are terrified, right? And why? What goes on here? This is very strange, right?
Styx has a stick up his ass, like, right away, because, all right, he's a disabled person and he needs crutches to get around, or a wheelchair for certain places as well, and that's fine. And I understand, you've got to have valid entry and exits for people with disabilities. That's fine. This place has like one step, just one, and it's not a big step either. It's quite a small step, but this just fucking destroys his world. And he immediately starts abusing them for it. Like, don't you have any respect for people with disabilities? How dare you people? And he's just going so over the top. He's so furious that I thought his wig was going to come off.
He uses the word crap, which is like one bridge too far. And that's when Kim, the wife, stands up to him and is like, there is no need for that kind of language. What she says, that kind of language never helped anything. And he goes, you know what? I'll think about that. You're right. It probably hasn't helped anything. But you know what will? My crutches, which are actually machine guns. And he murders them. He pulls up his crutches, and they're fucking machine guns, and he murders them. And it's like, you don't see it. It's all off camera. And we assume that they're all dead. And I have a note here. It says, Styx says that he has spina bifida. So in the universe of this movie, that makes him evil, because we'll learn here in a minute about what the Naked Man, Eddie, thinks about people with spinal problems and how that all works into his worldview, which is super fucked up, but pretty funny. So, Yeah, what'd you think about this? I mean, did your head explode when he just started killing them?
I knew something was going to happen, but I thought it was going to be Puffy Elvis who took action. You know, I thought because he's the big, intimidating one, he's silent, so you just think, all right, Styx is going to have a shit fit, and then afterwards, Puffy's going to throw down. Instead, fucking Elvis puts a hand out to steady Styx, and Styx lifts up his crutches. His crutches kind of split apart and turn into machine guns, which he uses to like gun down everyone in the room. So I know the movie had been kind of weird and strange and cartoonish to that point, but I did not expect that. Nothing can prepare you for that. I had no idea it was coming.
So weird. It's so weird, and you know what we forgot to mention too is that Styx and Puffy, they were discussing pharmacies in the van that they were driving in, and they were like, you know, does this town have any pharmacies? Oh, it's owned by this guy. So they have some kind of scheme going on here. They're not just stopping in to kill people. They're there for a reason. They're checking the place out and everything to see if they can get it, because they try to purchase the place, which is funny because that's when the mood really changes, because he's like, Styx is like, so how much would you take for this place? And Eddie's dad is a fucking asshole. He's like, it's not for sale. He's all shitty, and that's kind of really when
he repeats that like a dream sequence too.
Yes, he does.
Did you notice that? I'm sorry,
Yes.
I'm talking over you again, but that's such a dream sequence part. Not for sale. Zoom in on his lips. Not for sale.
Right.
Not for sale.
Yes. So weird. Oh my god. So that scene alone is worth watching the movie for, in my opinion. I think that part's awesome. It's so fucking weird, and it's great. So after that, you know, it's weird because Eddie decides he's just going to run home, because as we mentioned before, he had locked his keys in his car, and his Trans Am, excuse me, that's not a car, that's a fucking Trans Am with T-tops, and he's runs back. So at a certain point, he sees all the commotion, and we don't ever get a scene of him seeing the dead people, right? So we don't know who's dead and who isn't. He kind of loses his shit, and he starts wandering the streets, and some police stop him. Did you catch what happened here with the police?
Yeah, so I thought the police would kind of figure out who he was and kind of talk to him and go, hey, all right, it's all right, man, we got you. No, instead they kind of treat him like some weird vagrant or drifter walking down the street. So he twists them up. They get in his face. He twists them up into a weird shape, and then he pinches one of their police hats.
Yeah, he steals a police hat, and we see him wearing that later. And if you look up images from this movie, there's many images of him wearing the Naked Man suit with the police hat on, riding a motorcycle with a vest on, and it's just fucking like, what is this movie?
That's his outfit when that would have been the Naked Man's outfit if he turned heel or something.
He's like DDP in the 90s, you know. He's got too many gimmicks, so many gimmicks. But okay, so this is when you got really pissed off, because what happens is that he returns to the wrestling event, and he's just is sitting there, and the fucking promoter comes over. He's got the stupid hat on, the cop hat, and the promoter's like, I knew you'd be back, Eddie. I got this idea for you. Here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna have your best friend, and you're gonna turn on him, and it's gonna be great. Let me go make the announcement. And what does the Naked Man do?
He brushes the promoter off and just gets straight into the ring. There's already a match going on, so he barges into the ring. The wrestlers and the ref go, hey Eddie, how's it going? Or partially like, what the fuck's going on? He starts twisting them up into kind of weird shapes. Just think Sonata doing the Paradise Lock, but but even worse. But it looks a little more real and disturbing. Bones are cracking, and he has one of them in a kind of ankle lock or something like that, just like twisting it. I think he's twisting this guy's leg in a fucking 360 degrees. and he's in an ankle lock, so he's laying on his belly and screaming in pain, going, Eddie, stop, you're hurting me, The ref sees that, like, oh shit, the naked man's going into business for himself, and so he gets down and he goes 1, 2, 3, and that's when I lost my shit, because I don't care how much wrestling knowledge you have, you do not pin someone on their front.
Yeah, it's like what was that wrestler that did that once and got so much shit for it? Her name began with a C, I think. She wrestled in NXT. She was part of the God damn it. She was with the Usos' wife and her were like a tag team a while back. They were
one of the Funkadactyls.
Yeah, there you go. One of the Cameron.
Naomi
it was Cameron
and Cameron, yeah.
So that infuriated you, and I'm sure you saw him get pinned on his belly, and then it played again in your mind in slow motion like you were in a dream, I'm sure. And then so fucking Eddie's shooting on all the wrestlers, right? And what was kind of cool about this is there was actually like a storyline. So we had Viking versus Robber, and it turns out that Eddie, the Naked Man, and the Viking, they're best friends, because he had once given the Viking a can of herring or something like that, some kind of fish, on his birthday, and it's like, oh yeah, that's because that's all he eats. Oh, but he also eats this. Is that there's announcers talking. They do a really good job here. This is fun. But then he turns on the Viking dude and beats him up. Then he beats up the ref, and the crowd fucking loves it, and so does the promoter, which is really funny. And then one of my favorite jokes in the whole movie is there's an alarm that goes off in the back, and it says,
Yes.
all wrestlers. Tell me about this shit. This is amazing.
All right, so start of the match, by the way, as soon as he interferes, no DQ. All right, so now it's a triple threat, and now he beats them both. And then he slings the referee into the 6th or 7th row, right near the booker, and the booker makes this motion as if to go, strike! and everyone's going, freaking stone cold level nuts for this guy. There's commentators as well, but no camera crew. So I'll just leave that. I'll let that go. So he's gone into business for himself. It's friggin' panic stations, right? So it cuts to backstage in this long hallway, and there's this light, and it just goes off, and it says all wrestlers, alert, all wrestlers, and every single wrestler starts storming down into the ring. And the Naked Man, it was straight out of WCW, where Sting would just beat up all the NWO or something like that, but worse, because this guy's doing his Sonata stick on everyone, just twisting them in ways they weren't meant to be twisted. And just a pile of bodies. I'm pretty sure, you'll confirm this for me, I wasn't sure with the wrestling part, I was with the future scene, but he's killing some of these wrestlers, am I right?
Absolutely, yes, absolutely. He's killing
neck-snapping shit.
Oh, he kills a lot of people in this movie. And, there's no doubt about it. He has killed some of these wrestlers. In fact, so much that one of the wrestlers, he fucking drove them through the mat, and they're just sticking straight up through the mat as if, they were fucking, I don't know, like a nail that had been driven into a board. I mean, that guy's fucking dead. There's no living past that. And later on, he kills even more people. And that's kind of the kind of issue with this movie, is that he's a fucking murderer and he's awful, but he's like the good guy somehow. I don't know, gosh.
They play him off as totally sympathetic the whole time, but
yeah,
he's in this wrestling ring being a complete asshole. You don't go into business for yourself, and you don't hurt your opponents. Because you see them talking to each other earlier on in the movie, going, hey, watch out, my leg's a bit shitty, or don't hit me too hard, my wife's here, and things like that. No, probably normal wrestling speak, that kind of thing. But yeah, he's just lost his mind. Neck snapping, arm twisting, and this is some some of it's cartoony. Well, it's all cartoony, but it's disturbing too, because there's 1 360. 2 360.
Yes.
3 360.
And like, you see a shot of the ref like spinning his head watching it, Anyway, we got to move on. This is tremendous stuff. You got to watch this movie. So he destroys all these people, and then he unmasks and he cuts a promo about his holistic beliefs using many, many $5 words, and he says that spinal misalignment is the cause of all evil, pretty much, right?
I know you're going to mention this coming up, but there's an explanation that one of the police officers give about his speech, which was absolutely fantastic. But he gives this impassioned speech about good and evil, and then he goes something like, "And you know what the biggest problem in this world is?" And you're thinking, I don't know, people being greedy, or I don't know, hunger or some shit like. No, it's people who don't have their spines corrected properly.
That's the root of all evil, I mean, and that's why our bad guy, our big bad is a fucking dude with spina bifida, and therefore he is evil, right? So, so we got to pick up the pace here a little bit. Next we meet our character that is a very important character that we don't meet until fucking 55 minutes or so into the movie. It's Detective Koski, the most stereotypical crappy apartment, the most stereotypical, bullshit, wakes up in his suit, smells like shit, just sprays some smell good on himself. Tell me what he does with coffee. This is tremendous.
Oh, I've watched this movie twice, and this feels like a test. Like you see in a game show, they'll play something on a screen, and then they go, "All right, how many apples did you see?" And I'm like, "There were fucking apples in that." And I've watched this movie twice, and like coffee. I'm like, what I was thinking of when I saw this guy was, why are we spending so much time with him?
Yeah, there's a little too much of this. This scene goes on forever. Part of the scene is him just standing there trying to decide what to do with the coffee. So he looks at his coffee maker, it won't work, right? And then he decides he's just going to pour coffee grounds on a fucking piece of pizza and just eat that. And then later on, when he shows up at the crime scene, his partner, who we'll talk about here in a second, he says, "Hey, do you need any coffee?" And he's like, "No, I already had some." That's a fucking funny joke, right? I like that. So we get this stereotypical burned out cop, right? He eats disgusting things. He shows up at the crime scene, and we meet Detective Burns, played by that guy from Mad Men, the guy that played Roger on Mad Men, right? That guy was great.
Yep, recognized him instantly, and it does seem like a role that is been kind of typecast for. I know pretty sure I've seen him play police in other things and stuff too. I didn't watch much of Mad Men. I am ashamed to say.
He's got kind of a real, not quite 1920s, but more like 1940s kind of like candor to his speech. It's not just like, "Hey, we got a crime here." He doesn't do that, but he's kind of got that same cadence where he's just spitting information real fast at everybody. I love that.
It's almost like Dragnet.
Yes, you got it. Exactly. Yep. So Eddie, we learn also that he beat up these cops and that he's on the run. So Eddie goes to a biker bar, still dressed as the Naked Man, and he asks to He has to borrow a motorcycle, and he meets this biker chick named Dolores, who's played by Rachel Leigh Cook. And can you describe her for everybody?
She has tattoos on her breasts and on her arms. She has a nose piercing. It's typical, like, kind of 90s edgy character, but who's also sensitive at the same time. But she likes bad boys. But she loves her bad boys, but she's really nice and sensitive, and you think she's full of attitude, but she's not really.
Yeah, she's she was at the wrestling match, it turns out. So she was like, "Oh, that was so cool what you said. You're right. Spina bifida."
Did you see her in a crowd?
That's what she said. Yeah, she said she was at the show. She said,
yeah.
Actually,
Did you see her?
Oh, I didn't see her. No.
Me neither. I watched this movie twice, and I looked out for it the second time. I didn't see her in the crowd. So,
well, they had her for one. They only had her for one day, obviously, because they filmed two scenes at the same fucking place, and then she's like in one other scene, and that's it. So, yeah, they're not going to pay her to be in the crowd, you know. But but she's a mark, it turns out. And Eddie diagnoses a customer, Mountain, played by Big Dick Dudley from ECW. He diagnoses him as having all kinds of issues. And there's a really funny part where he starts touching the guy's stomach and says, "Oh, this." Your skeleton wasn't meant to hold all this fat, and it makes this hilarious sloshing sound when he touches his stomach, which was funny. What do you remember? What he does here after Big Dick Dudley decides to attack him? How's this go for Big Dick Dudley?
Well, his diagnosis made me question some of my life decisions, since I've got a bit of a gut myself. But Big Dick Dudley. He decides which pool cue he might want to use. He grabs it and takes a couple of practice swings. 1, 2, but doesn't go 3, and no, he's got to do a run up to do this. So he runs up, and then the naked man just turns around, grabs the pool cue, and it just breaks in half.
He's superhuman, man.
Yeah.
So he kills him. He kills Big Dick Dudley. We don't see any of it, you know. We just cut
Too expensive.
Yeah, exactly. We cut to the cops. Burns and Koski are investigating the bar crime scene, and they say there's no witnesses because he fucking killed everyone. So that's bad. And then we learn in a scene where we see Styx and Puffy and like a lawyer character or something. They're like, watching a I don't know, like a slideshow of all these pharmacies in the area, and the only one they don't own is the Bliss Pharmacy, right? But it turns out that the Bliss has just died, and now the owner is Eddie. But Eddie doesn't even know that really, because he's lost his fucking mind. And this is kind of where we get this bizarre scenes. A lot of the bizarre scenes are kind of here, where Dolores and Eddie are sitting by this fire, and Dolores talks about her life, which is the Rachel Leigh Cook character. She also, you said she had tattoos on her boobs. One of them says hate, and the other one says love, which, I mean, maybe she just hates one of her boobs. I don't know. I liked them both. I thought they were fine.
She's a weirdo because she just watched this. She must have just stood there and watched him execute everyone in the bar as well, by the way. And now she's riding on a motorcycle with him like he's just kind of some kind of spiritual being that will help her find, peace with herself.
I don't know. She's made some poor choices. I would venture to guess that her spine's a little out of alignment. But but they sit by a fire. We get a flashback of Kim and Eddie doing wholesome things together, like a 3-legged race. And he cries, and Dolores kind of comforts him. And that was pretty great. We also get a scene where we see that Kim is still alive, but she's in a coma, right? So that's.
I think we saw that earlier, by the way. They open up one of the body bags because she's moving in it.
But we don't know who's moving, so we don't know who it is.
That's right.
And we never get confirmation that the kid's alive, other than I think the cop at the end says, "Oh, you gotta raise your kid, Eddie," or something like that. But I don't know. That kid probably got shot in the face by a fucking machine gun out at the end of that guy's.
Is the baby dead?
We never see it again. So
That's
I don't know.
Weird. It's dark too.
It is. It's real dark, So Eddie and Dolores, they ride to Puffy's pharmacy location. Now, the whole time this is going on, Eddie's not saying a word. He has had a psychotic break, and really, we see Dolores. She's like, "Oh, you really like this, don't you? Yeah, so you must be like this," and blah, blah, blah. She's kind of just speaking for him, but he doesn't seem to know what his name is. He doesn't seem to know who he is at all. He goes into this pharmacy, and he's looking for Styx, basically. And because he knows that Styx killed his. Well, I don't know how he knows that Styx. I don't know.
Me neither.
That's a big plot hole. But he's attacked by the clerks, and he beats the shit out of them, right? And he's like chasing one into this back office, and he interrogates this manager to find out about Styx and his spine. He also learns that the drugstores are a front for illegal drugs, and when and where the next shipment will be. But then Elvis Pearl Harbors the shit out of him and injects him with something, which is not, I mean, we already know Eddie is not cool with injections. He gets injected with this like truth serum, and we get another dream sequence type thing where they coerce Eddie into signing over the pharmacy for $50, and Eddie has a vision of Styx as a baby. Did you see this?
Yes, I did. Dream sequences, yeah. And then the drugs messed him up bad because he probably never would have had anything in his body before. So, yeah, $50. We'll give you a good deal on it. $50. Dreamlike, $50, $50, $50.
So after that, they commit him to an asylum, and Dolores breaks him out, and that's the only reason she exists in this movie is for that. Like once she breaks him out, she's like, "See you later, movie," and drives off on the motorcycle, pretty much. So, so that was great. Then we get before she says "see you later," the movie, we get this really fucking weird dream sequence thing where Eddie like wrestles a tree. He's like naked, all covered in mud, and he's like wrestling a tree. And the song,
he's doing chiropractic shit on himself.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, so he's getting the toxins out. I gotcha. Okay.
Yeah, she smears mud on him to get the toxins out, and then he stands up. I think it's like there's lightning or some shit like that, and he's found this tree. And he's using it to get into these weird positions. By the way, they're making this montage seem sexy as fuck, but it's kind of strange and weird. I'm not saying Michael Rappaport's not sexy. If you're into that, that's fine, but
it's weird.
He's just, yeah, it's weird, and he's just doing all these chiropractic things to kind of straighten himself out.
It looks like he's wrestling the tree, but so and then the song that's playing sounds a lot like I just checked in to see what condition my condition was in. It's like a shitty, like cheap version, like sound-alike of that song, which I think is pretty funny because that's from The Big Lebowski, obviously. Yeah. By Kenny Rogers actually wrote that. So we have this. He's been broken out of the asylum. The asylum scene is literally like a minute. He's in there. He's gets broken out because she actually ties fucking the motorcycle to the bars and yanks him off the wall or whatever. And we get this strange sequence. And then Eddie is at the location of the drug shipment, which is a private airport. All right. Dolores is just gone. She said goodbye to the movie. We'll never see her again. And then
I'll follow you forever. She said she'd follow him forever, no matter what, or something like that. Nah, she's fucking gone, dude.
Well, there's another naked man running around out there somewhere. I'm sure she could.
She got a free motorbike. It's all good.
There you go. Maybe she met Elvis, for a second. Who knows? But so the cops are on their way, right? They figured out what all's going on. I don't know how, but they know. And so Eddie shows up at this airport. He takes out this clerk, and then he has a showdown with Puffy / Elvis, right? And he deputizes him because Elvis is going after him again with this injection and this needle to inject him with the mind control shit. But Eddie fucking turns that around on him, right? Did you catch what we learn also what Hotel Sierra means in cop lingo? Did you catch that?
No, I didn't. What was it?
Holy shit. That's what it means. So they're going over the radio like Hotel Sierra. And he's like, what's that mean? He's like, holy shit. So that was pretty funny. Elvis is crazy because he's been mind controlled and Eddie's like, hey, you need to stop the drugs. And he gives him his gun back. And so Elvis starts running around shooting people. So Elvis Presley is running around shooting people in this movie. All right. But Luke, will you describe how he meets his demise? Because it is, it much like the machine gun crutches scene, this is also another reason to see the movie. He's
walking, he's just kind of lazily shot a couple people. He's drugged, so I'll let that slide. That's fine. But he's walking towards the propeller, walking towards Styx, who's just lazing around with binoculars in a wheelchair doing jack shit to help. Well, I guess he's disabled. He wouldn't be too much help. But and then I'm thinking to myself, you better watch out. He's going to walk into that propeller, isn't he? And it cuts to the front of the cockpit inside the plane. Blood smears over it, and then you think that's it. He got crushed like that kid at the end of Freddy Got Fingered, right? Like totally destroyed. But
I love that movie.
That's a movie I am quite happy to name drop. But instead of being totally destroyed and dismembered, it's just sliced off his huge gut, and you see his intestines and guts and stuff. Some of it falls out onto the tarmac, and he looks down at it. No, by the way, his hand has been chopped off as well. That's gone flying, and it lands right in the lap of Styx, who freaks out like
it's the hand with the gun too.
Yeah, and Elvis, he looks down, he sees his guts is gone, his hand's missing, so he reaches into his pocket, grabs his pills, he pops some of these pills, and they fall out onto the ground.
Because they go right through his guts to the floor.
Yes.
That's fucking awesome, man.
And he falls down dead.
Oh my gosh, amazing! That shit is just so ridiculous, and it looks as cheap as it sounds. I mean, it looks so crappy, and I love it. It should look crappy.
I loved it. Yeah.
It's unbelievable. So that was amazing. And then at this point, we see that the cops are kind of doing some comedic shenanigans too, where they're like driving their car, and like the cops like, look out, a plane, and the plane goes by, look out, a forklift, because like Eddie had been driving a forklift, and that part's pretty funny. So Eddie and Styx have this confrontation. Eddie kind of has Styx like hostage, right? And they know he's been breaking people's necks, so he's got Styx by the neck. And the cops are like, don't do it, man. Don't do it, man. They're like, yeah. And this is when the cop, they're like, you need to take care of your wife and child. So he finds out that they're still alive, right? Or at least the wife is, because we see her. Eddie twists Stick's neck, but he adjusted him just like you had predicted earlier in the movie. And he starts dancing around all of a sudden, right? And he's just doing the hootatoo and the Charleston and everything. But he pulls that gun out that had landed in his lap that was in Elvis's hand that got chopped off by a fucking propeller of a plane. And the cops, so he pulls the gun out and the cops shoot him. And what's it? One of the cops says, "See you later, Sticks," like that. and he fucking dies. And, and that's the end of the scene, other than, Eddie runs over, he hugs the cop. And this is where I realized that this Koski cop was supposed to be a surrogate for Eddie's father. And there was something missing here because he said, "You're a good boy." He looks
kind of like the gym teacher as well.
Oh, I bet you it's the same actor. I bet you it is. Man, that's genius. Well, he holds Eddie and he says, "You're a good boy, Eddie. You're a good boy." Even though he just fucking murdered a bunch of people and they don't even know each other. So he doesn't even cuff him, He just says, "You're a good boy." So then we cut to our denouement of the movie, where Eddie visits Kim in the hospital, but we see he's wearing orange. And, he raises his hand to touch her and he has handcuffs on. He's like, "Oh, don't worry about that. I just got to go to jail for the rest of my life." And then the Detective Koski, he lays down at home. The end. What did you think of The Naked Man, Luke?
I'm not sure I love the movie, but I will tell you I loved watching it. There's some shit, but there's some really bizarre fun stuff. There's some, like, you can tell there's a shitty budget for this movie, but I think they make it work. Like, you can tell the propeller stuff is pretty fake. They can't afford to do 2 major fights, so they just stick to the wrestling one. You don't see anyone in the barber really getting beat up. So they do take shortcuts in that kind of respect to kind of save money. But on the other hand, they pad that out with scenes that stay way too long with this detective, as he just does, well, fuck all. So it's a weird 90s. I wouldn't even call it a cult movie, because if someone tells me, "Have you heard of this cult movie?" I'm like, "Yeah, I've heard of it, or maybe I've even seen it." But yeah, I think there's a reason why we found this movie on a very kind of obscure rare film website.
Yeah, it's not very good, is it? Do you recommend people watch it?
I do, actually. I really do, because bad movies, like, I'd rate this movie at least a 2. But,
It's
of 10, by the way.
It's better than Doolittle. Get the
Like,
fuck out of here. Come on.
but I really enjoyed it. Like, if I'm got my objective, I watch this movie and I'll give my objective review. Well, who am I kidding? My movie reviews are not objective at all. But it's a 2, but so bad it's good. Like, you really want to watch it. Maybe have a couple friends with you, have a few drinks, and it's just one of those really bad movies you can have a good time with.
Yeah, I recommend people watch it. I think it's a lot of fun. It's not good, but it's just it's this weird fucking movie. It reminds me a whole lot of a movie called Repo Man, which is just one of these movies that you think it's about some guys that are repo men, and then it just goes fucking bizarre. And it's a very, although Repo Man's a much better movie, it's just a very
Fantastic.
similar kind of feel to it, you know. And I do recommend that people watch it. I really enjoyed it. But we have some late breaking news here, because I was able to reach out to the star of this movie, The Naked Man. I was able to reach out to Michael Rappaport, and we have now I hope you have time here, because we have a really extensive interview that I was able to do with him via Twitter. So I'll read this to you here. And I know, I'm sorry, we've already been going an hour 15, so this is going to take a little while. So, just strap in.
Me.
So I said, at Michael Rappaport, did you do any pro wrestling training for The Naked Man? And he wrote back and he said, some. So that's our interview with Michael Rappaport about The Naked Man. What do you think of that, Luke? That's pretty cool, right?
That is really awesome. When did you send it to him, and how long did it take him to reply?
I sent that. Let's see here. I sent that about 3 hours ago. So you never know. I sent a follow-up question, so there may be, if we talked about this movie for another 2 hours, we could probably get another response from him, because I asked him who he trained with, but I noticed yeah, Big Dick Duckley. There was also another wrestler that was name checked in the credits, and his name's Charlie Norris. And he's like a Native American wrestler that wrestled like as a jobber in the NWA and WCW, like in the early 90s and late 80s. I think he's the one that played maybe played the Naked Man. I'm not sure when he was wrestling. I'm not positive, because that person's not really credited in the movie. But anyway, all right. Well, this was a fucking blast, man. Maybe we'll do it again in the future. I guess it's your turn to recommend a movie that's fucking weird and has Elvis with his guts spilling all over the place. But tell us again. Tell us again, where can folks find you on the internet, and tell us a little bit about your YouTube channel, just to wrap this thing up here.
All right. So on Twitter, you can find me at Grumpy, 2, the number 2, and EB, the letters E and B. So I'm over there. If you're interested in wrestling, I guess everyone listening to this podcast is interested in wrestling, Luke, idiot. I comment a lot, mostly about New Japan and AEW, but if I'm feeling in a grumpy mood, I'll chuck on some WWE and have a good old rant about that. On YouTube, I'm LSJ. Kind of like Zack Sabre Jr., just not as cool. LSJ reviews. I've done about 13 of them now, something like that. They're only a handful of minutes each, and I think they're all right. They're kind of low budget, but that's me all over, really.
Well, I think they're quality, and I think you're a quality individual. I only have quality individuals on our show, so I appreciate you joining me, man. Folks know they can follow me at Drucifer Tweets on Twitter. You can follow our show at The Road Home FW, and I think that's everything. So, in the words of The Naked Man, let's get our spine straightened out there, and thank you guys so much for listening.